Hello and welcome to 3BL Media's Best Practices webinar on the state of workplace giving. I'm Dave Arman, CMO of 3BL Media, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. Thank you first for registering. We have close to 300 people registered today, and again for logging into the webcast. Expect the presentation portion to take about a half hour, and then we've allocated 15 minutes or so for Q&A. If you'd like to submit a question to our presenters, please type your question into the GoToWebcast platform on the left side of the screen. And in case you encounter any kind of technical difficulty, such as intermittent audio during the presentation, usually we find that just refreshing your browser solves the problem. If you have to drop off early, don't worry. We'll email everyone who registered with a replay link that you can use to listen to the entire archived webcast and share with your coworkers if you find the content compelling, and I'm sure you will. For those who don't know anything about 3BL Media, just a couple of seconds to explain what we do. We're a corporate communications platform that's used by companies and nonprofits to increase awareness of their corporate social responsibility and sustainability initiatives. And we host webinars like today's to give thought leaders an opportunity to talk about the issues that CSR and sustainability communicators face as they build and update their programs, and also as they express the value of their social impact work to the C-suite. Our next webinar in this series is scheduled for January 14th. It's a Thursday, and it will feature GRI, Weber Shandwick, and CEMEX. The topic will be Trends in Sustainability Reporting. And there is a slide here and a link that you can take a look at that will give you the right URL to go ahead and register for that webcast. A big part of the CSR work being done by our clients involves their workforce. So we're thrilled to be hosting today's reveal of new data gathered by America's Charities in the past several months. Our presenters will be Lindsay Nichols, Vice President of Marketing and Communications, and Steve Greenhalgh, a Senior Advisor to America's Charities. Once Lindsay and Steve share details of their Snapshot 2015 research, we'll get some perspective from Heather Wright, Corporate Responsibility Director for PwC U.S. When you're submitting your questions, let us know if you want Heather or Steve or Lindsay to answer. Otherwise, I might take a stab at it, and that would probably be dangerous. So let's get the presentation started now by saying good morning to Lindsay Nichols. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you all so much for being with us today. And I'm so pleased to share the findings of Snapshot 2015 with you all. And I want to take a moment to thank 3BL Media for hosting this special webcast. It's been fantastic. Lynn Filderman, who co-authored this research, unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to join you. And just a quick housekeeping item, we are live tweeting today using the hashtag Snapshot 2015, so please join the conversation there as well. So let's get to it. Just first a quick note about America's Charities. So we've mobilized the workforce to affect social change. That means we operate at the intersection of companies, nonprofits, and employees. And specifically, we help employers design, execute, and manage their employee engagement, workplace giving, and CSR programs. And we help nonprofits fundraise unrestricted sustainable dollars. And in doing so, we help to improve our world. So our Snapshot research series is really designed to put a finger on the pulse of the issues and concerns that leaders in the workplace giving, employee engagement, and corporate nonprofit partnership space are dealing with. So we call this series Snapshot for that reason. It's really about this moment in time. And we started this research in 2000, again in 2006, and then annually for the past 3 years. So we're going to dig into those 3 years really briefly. For Snapshot 2013, we talked to companies about workplace giving, which was traditionally a once-a-year effort, usually in the fall, asking employees to give money to charity. And we found the most dramatic shift we've seen in workplace giving to date. The evolving workforce and our digital culture were changing the paradigm, and a whole new model of workplace giving was emerging, one that more fully engaged employees and maximized the impact of the giving experience. Snapshot 2013 also captured how our networked world, our big data and the social sharing age were removing the barriers between what's inside and what's outside the walls of the workplace. So for Snapshot 2014, we wanted to explore this changing landscape from the perspective of nonprofits. To our knowledge, this was the first time charities were asked to provide their perspective on workplace giving. And we found that they were clearly experiencing increased expectations from their corporate and institutional partners and employee donors to be more accountable, transparent, and demonstrate impact. Nonprofits also noted that they certainly value their corporate partnerships, but they were challenged to sustain them in meaningful ways. And that leads me to this year, which I'm so excited to talk about. We decided to revisit the corporate world as employee engagement is changing dynamically and rapidly. We wanted to see how this changing landscape continued to evolve to incorporate technology and social sharing and move engagement from really a series of transactions to, frankly, a more transformational experience. So we're very proud to share our findings from Snapshot 2015. We're calling it the new corporate DNA, where employee engagement and social impact converge. And before I dive in, I just want to let everyone know that you will receive the electronic version of Snapshot 2015 in your inboxes soon. So let's get to the top 6 trends that emerged from this research. The first is that meaningful volunteerism is now the core around which companies are building employee engagement strategies and initiatives. It's the on-ramp to full engagement with nonprofits, and that includes 3 key components: giving time, talent, and money. The second is that companies must be authentic in demonstrating their commitment to engagement and those initiatives designed to have impact. If not, your employees will know. Third is employee engagement programs are actually likely to fail if leadership support isn't there. It's not enough to just give time, talent, and money and to just say that that's important. It's essential for leadership at all levels of the company to be involved and in a really authentic way. In other words, it must be part of the corporate DNA. And in a moment, we're going to cover what company leaders said was most important to them. The fourth is that the next generation has entered the workforce with very high expectations of their employers around engagement. They experience the world where there is no separation of what it means to be inside and outside the walls of the workplace. It is one melded experience for them. So they want to be involved, and they expect their employers to empower them to do so. Fifth is that engagement isn't just for large companies. Small and mid-sized companies now feel increased expectations to be more strategic in their philanthropy and are looking for opportunities to empower their employees. Snapshot 2015 gives data underlining the differences between large and small companies, and there are some differences, but that gap is closing, and it provides insight into opportunities for expansion. And finally, we all know that impact and alignment are very key to corporate nonprofit partnerships, but it's not only for companies and their employees, but also for their nonprofit partners. So as we see it, it's essential that corporate interests are strategically aligned with employee needs. At the same time, it's increasingly important that companies work with their nonprofit partners in ways that meet genuine needs and are mutually beneficial. So these are the top 6 trends, and we are going to talk about next what's really important to corporate leaders. We asked companies to identify what aspects of employee engagement are top of mind for them, and we found that giving and volunteerism, measuring ROI, empowering employees around causes, and telling their stories were all top of the list. So we're going to dig into each of these very briefly. Year-round giving and volunteer opportunities were identified as the most important components. It's also important to leadership to provide support for employees to serve as nonprofit board members. The ability to measure ROI of employee engagement is something that continues to grace the top of the list. They're not sure how to do it, and if they do it, they need to constantly reevaluate. The ability for employees to choose causes they give to and support is critically important. Connecting employees to corporate signature initiatives is continuing to grace the list of what's very important. And opportunities for employees to connect with their peers around causes continues to be what's very important to corporate leaders today. And Companies clearly are interested in gaining recognition for their social responsibility and employee engagement programs, and they also have a keen desire to promote stories as well as data, so stories and data, about employee engagement initiatives and impact. So I'd like to introduce Steve Greenhalgh, Senior Advisor to America Charities and co-author of this research, to detail more of Snapshot 2015's findings.
Thank you, Lindsay. I would like to add that it's been my pleasure to work with you and Lynn Filderman and the entire America Charities team on this latest research. As Lindsay indicated, when Snapshot 2015 was released, I was quoted as saying it was the most dramatic shift we had seen in workplace giving. While this is true, I think it is fascinating to see the changes that have taken place in just 2 short years. As Lindsay indicated, Snapshot 2013 and 15 looked at workplace giving and employee engagement from the corporate perspective. Time today doesn't allow us to go into all the findings from the research, but we're going to hit several of the key points. For many years, workplace giving was based on a program of payroll deductions. In recent years, we saw that grow to include more and more companies offering a match of employee contributions. And by the way, we know that match is an important incentive to encourage employees to both give and participate. Payroll deduction and matching gift and charitable choice, which now is the norm in over 93% of companies, were the foundations of employee engagement in 2013. In 2015, we're seeing another dramatic shift, documenting the transformation from a giving program to a more fully integrated engagement strategy. It is about connecting employees with causes they care about and to causes that the company cares about as well. As Lindsay mentioned, volunteerism has moved to the top of the list. Companies are developing strategies that invite and encourage employees to volunteer and to tap into their interests beyond just giving money. It has become the on-ramp to full engagement. Before we leave this slide, I do want to offer one caution to our corporate friends that are listening today. With the shift of volunteerism, as documented in this research, it's important to remember that financial contributions remain essential to nonprofit organizations. In order to fulfill their mission, there is a need for greater, unrestricted, and sustainable financial contributions in addition to the volunteers that are being provided through the corporate community. We've highlighted the changes between 2013 and 2015, but we also found some differences between how larger and small to mid-sized companies are approaching employee engagement. For the first time, Snapshot 2015 included these small to mid-sized businesses. These smaller companies are coming on board in large numbers and are demonstrating their commitment to becoming involved in employee engagement and CSR. The components vary between large and small companies, but even in small companies, it is quickly becoming embedded in the DNA. We do see differences. Larger companies tend to focus more on payroll and matching, volunteerism, and year-round giving. Medium and small-sized companies are less focused on giving and payroll contributions, fall campaigns, and matching programs. They emphasize volunteer opportunities, some year-round giving, and less on payroll and even less on matching gifts. Companies are quickly acknowledging that employee engagement is a key recruitment and retention strategy for companies. From the research, we found that 77% of the companies responding to our survey believe that engagement opportunities is an important recruitment strategy, that it's a way of attracting employees to their company and workers to their company. 84% said that providing volunteer opportunities is an important way to engage employees. And 73% said that offering employee engagement is a retention strategy. So companies are looking at it as an on-ramp to bring individuals on board, and then as a strategy to keep them on board once they've signed on to the company. We've also seen changes in the way companies measure success. Generally and historically, we've seen some key measures. The first is the more traditional, and that is money and participation. I know we've often asked, well, how much money did we raise, or what percent of our employees raised? 65% of the respondents to the survey said that still is the foundation of their success indicators. A growing number of companies are using employee feedback. 63% said they actually survey employees to find out what they feel and how they are engaging with the company and these programs. A number of companies, 44%, said they go outside and benchmark externally against other companies, including their peer companies or companies that they want to emulate in their practices. New this year, we're seeing a number of companies that are using media presence as a success indicator, and that includes the traditional media opportunities as well as social media mentions as well. And 25% of companies said that now is becoming important to them. So success is measured in different ways, and we're starting to see it grow into tweets, retweets, postings, blog postings, and etc. And so that, I think, is indicative of kind of the workforce that we're dealing with today. Snapshot 2014, as Lindsay mentioned earlier, looked at engagement from the nonprofit perspective. So in 2015, we wanted to validate, did companies and nonprofits view this alike? 2014, the nonprofit community said, we're experiencing significant expectations from our corporate partners. We're getting a lot more requests for volunteer opportunities. We're getting a lot more requests from our corporate partners. Snapshot 2015 said, indeed, they're right. We are asking more. Our expectations of them have risen over the last couple of years. 73% said they prefer to have deeper partnerships with a smaller number of nonprofits. So we've moved beyond the checkbook philanthropy to where we really are wanting to move the needle in specific causes. And they're identifying and aligning themselves with nonprofit partners that can become strategic in helping them to move that needle. 69%, almost 70%, said they expect the nonprofits to demonstrate impact. And 66%, they want them to be able to prove greater accountability. So indeed, corporations are saying the nonprofits are right. You feel it, and we expect it. And 67% said they're looking for opportunities for employees to engage with them in more meaningful ways, beyond the painting the walls, beyond the cleaning the streams. It really is more about pro bono, skills-based, rather than the one-time episodic type volunteer events. As I said, time today doesn't allow us to provide a comprehensive report from Snapshot 2015. I encourage you, when the link arrives in your inbox, to download the entire document. As with previous reports, this research offers a roadmap for companies as they seek to enhance or revitalize their programs and ensure they remain relevant to the changing workforce. It is important to periodically reevaluate your programs. As one survey respondent said in completing the survey, we must always reevaluate, otherwise we are not innovating. Reevaluation allows companies to maintain and enhance their engagement strategies to make sure they're more effective, meaningful, and stay relevant with the changing workforce. Let me now turn it back to Lindsay to offer some final thoughts on the presentation and the research that we've conducted.
Thank you, Steve, and it is our honor to have you continue to be involved with this research. So before I turn it over to Heather Wright to give us an insider perspective, let me give some final insights from the new research Snapshot 2015. The first is that there is a need for employee engagement to be embedded deeply into the corporate culture. It's not just words. It's not just checkbook philanthropy. It's about the DNA. It's about making employee engagement fundamental to the corporate vision, goals, and values. The second is that employees are smart, they're savvy, and they know when it's the real deal. So leadership at all levels must be authentically involved and supportive of employee engagement initiatives. If they are not, your employees will know. The third is that volunteerism is the road to full engagement with nonprofit organizations. It provides opportunities for professional development as well as transformational experiences. As one respondent noted, it's not what employees are doing, but who they are that makes this successful. The fourth is that companies recognize the importance of their signature programs and want to catalyze employees to become engaged with those corporate initiatives and see opportunities for team building and gaining new skills. But they also understand that employees must be empowered to support their own personal causes, and they want to encourage peer-to-peer connections. We're strong believers and advocates for companies and their nonprofit partners to engage in a deeper dialogue to share what's important to both and find ways where there's a mutual benefit. A respondent to Snapshot 2014 told us how his nonprofit had their walls painted 7 different times because they didn't want to turn, or he didn't want to turn down help from their nonprofit or their corporate partner. And you can imagine that that wall was probably beautiful after that first painting. This really goes to show that there needs to be an alignment and a conversation of mutual beneficial goals. And finally, large companies have evolved workplace giving into full employee engagement over the past 20 years, and they've learned substantial lessons to get where we are today. As employees in today's workforce begin to hold similar expectations of small and mid-sized employers, these companies can leapfrog over the past 20 years to learn from their experiences and leverage new strategies and opportunities. And frankly, technology, evolving strategies, and a changing workforce can actually help bring this to scale. So that's our overview of the top-level findings of Snapshot 2015. I encourage you to visit charities.org/Snapshot2015 to learn more. As a reminder, everyone who registered will receive Snapshot 2015 in their email inbox. And now I'm thrilled to introduce Heather Wright, Corporate Responsibility Director at PricewaterhouseCoopers, who will share insights from the corporate perspective.
Well, thank you so much, Lindsay, for the introduction. Thank you, Dave and 3DL Media, for hosting today. And special thanks to Steve and Lynn and Lindsay and the team at America Charities for putting together this snapshot. So if you're familiar with the past snapshots, then you're probably as excited as I am about this unveiling today of this new body of research. Interestingly, when I first took over employee giving for PwC, took over the responsibility of engaging our people in giving back through our workplace giving program and making it a relevant program for our people, making sure those of you who do this as well will relate to the complexities of making sure that the dollars go where and when they're expected and the tax receipts get out and the whole bit. I was very interested in benchmarking data on what other organizations were doing, and I found everywhere I looked, I would ask around various colleagues in the industry and different organizations, and all roads pointed back to Snapshot 2013. So that has been my personal Bible for benchmarking information around most specifically around employee giving these past couple of years. And so it's so exciting to have this new, deeper body of work that goes into a lot more areas, a lot more data points, had a greater number of respondents to the survey. So it's up to date, and there's a lot in there, and I think it would be well worth everyone's time when they receive the survey to really take a close look. I think there's a wealth of information, and again, Steve, Lindsay, and team, I really appreciate everything the group did to pull this together and all the insights. So I think this is great for all of us in the industry. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I've been viewing these trends. So, taking a step out of that aggregate data that Lindsay and Steve just walked us through and think about, what does it mean for an individual practitioner? And I know, looking at the list of attendees or people who had signed up for today, that many of us are looking at some of the same topics, and yet it can be a little bit different for each of us. Some of the things that I think are fairly consistent are what Steve and Lindsay touched on in terms of changing expectations and the speed at which they're changing at this point. And so I've just provided, I've jammed a lot into this one slide, but I've just provided a couple views here about this evolution, and you can see it in the numbers. In the past 15 years, we've seen tremendous growth rate in terms of the number of organizations that are reporting either through the Carbon Disclosure Project or issuing corporate responsibility reports. But what's interesting is how much that explosion has happened in the past 5 out of those 15 years. And things are really changing exponentially. And it's interesting that I'd say even 5 years ago, when I would attend industry seminars or conferences, a popular topic, a big question in breakout sessions or as people were networking between sessions or over meals, a lot of people would say, how do you get your CEO or your leadership team on board with these ideas? Or how do you convince leadership to invest in some of these corporate responsibility initiatives? And just in those 5 years, there's been this real shift where suddenly the questions I'm hearing more and more from colleagues in the industry are around, okay, how do I deliver on my CEO's expectations in this space? Because we've gone from trying to convince leaders that this is important to them now being on board and looking to us to say, okay, well, what's next? What's innovative? How do we get more out of this? And so it's put many of us in the position of having to look at what's that next big thing, which again is why it's so valuable to have this kind of data that you've all provided, Lindsay and Steve. Similarly, I think not only within corporate responsibility, but within a lot of emerging areas, we are challenged to make sure we continue to be ahead of the pack. So it's not only the leadership team that's begun to get on board, but our stakeholders. So if I think personally, I'm thinking about our employees, the partners and staff at my firm who I need to provide them opportunities and programs to engage in. Well, their expectations have changed too. And so we are all looking with this speed of change to stay one step ahead. If we get too far ahead with some of our initiatives, people won't follow us there, right? But on the other hand, if we are talking to them about things that they're already sold on or they've already started to incorporate into their own habits, whether it's around volunteerism or going green, it's as Lindsay and Steve have talked about examples of, painting the same fence over and over again. These stakeholders, our audience, is turning to us to say, well, what's next? Another important way, I think, to look at this, and Lindsay showed us a similar Venn diagram earlier. If we're looking at the impact or the value, the shared value concept within this three-legged stool of what's in it for the corporate sector or the businesses, what's in it for society or the nonprofit sector, what's in it for the individuals, the employees, the people who we are engaging in these activities. More and more, I see that we need to be able to deliver on as many cylinders as possible with each program to really get the most out of our investment in this space and keep all parties interested, which speaks to a variety of things. It speaks to, that evolving maturity in how the individuals are looking at how they can give back and what they expect to get out of it personally and professionally. For the corporate sector, an engaged employee is going to be a more productive employee who's more likely to stay with the organization or be a promoter of the organization when they do leave. So there's that value to the corporate organization, but also for the individuals, they are looking to get, everyone's time is precious, right? So they're looking to get personal and professional networking, skill development, that feel-good feeling of giving back. And in fact, the more they get those things out of it, the more contagious this is. They become committed and are more likely to keep coming back, and they're telling their friends and family and colleagues about what they're doing and will bring others along with them. Similarly, this very importantly speaks to the relationships with the nonprofits, which Lindsay and Steve touched on as well, that if we aren't collaborating with the right organizations, then if we're forcing the issue, we're not going to be able to have a long-term sustainable relationship. That increased pressure that I was talking about corporate responsibility practitioners experiencing with their leadership teams is transferred right onto our nonprofit relationships. But for important reason, being that we all are in this together, needing to report on impact, needing to be able to look at, again, this shared value that's going to make these relationships sustainable and enable us to do more together than we would do as separate entities. Another thing that was threaded throughout the snapshot information that Lindsay and Steve just took us through is the concept of culture and the concept of authenticity and how critical that is. And this is, again, where when we're thinking about stakeholder groups, this is top-down and bottom-up. Steve was just talking about the importance of reevaluating programs regularly. When you have a large group of people, Steve also touched on that balance between individual interests and the organizational interests. When you have so many stakeholders, you do need to have a finger on that pulse, because I know what I'm trying to achieve isn't possible if I don't have the leadership buy-in and support, the resources to get things done. But even if I have all of that, I can't achieve my goals if I am not bringing this group of employees with me. It has to be stuff that's going to resonate with them. Again, hit on those multiple cylinders of what they get out of giving back, but also really resonate with them in terms of touching on topics and cause areas that are important to them, aligning with what they're reading in various channels around the Sustainable Development Goals and how their individual contributions fit into the problems that we as a society are facing in the world today and where we all want to be to solve that. So when I boil that down to the program goals that my team and I are facing each day and how we bring that to life, we're looking at, we have a group of busy people who really want to give back in meaningful ways. How do we make that easy for them? And the giving back part doesn't have to be easy. You know, we all know that whether, you know, some of the hardships that you see others experiencing when you volunteer, or the time commitment of being on a nonprofit board, even the financial contributions and how you have to make decisions about what is, where you're spending your money. The giving back part doesn't have to be easy. The on-ramps to getting there need to be. We need to provide opportunities for people to give back in the moment when they're feeling it, when they're touched by something they've experienced, or they want to help a friend support their cause. And it has to be, you know, again, that it's easy to sign up and show up, even if the activity itself could make you sweat or cry. You know, I think that people aren't shying away from the hard work. It's those initial barriers to finding out where to go and how can I give back and how can I contribute. One thing that concerned me a little bit about this current snapshot is that shift from giving in dollars to giving in time. I really think for the individual as well as on an organizational level, this is really a portfolio. This is part of what I mean about having multiple on-ramps to give back. We all know, certainly across our careers as we age, but even within a day or a week, we have moments where we feel we have more time than money to contribute, and there are other times where we may feel we have more money than time to contribute. And we need, you know, whether it's celebrating Martin Luther King Day and how we honor his memory, or whether it's Veterans Day and honoring our veterans, or it could be Mother's Day and honoring our mothers. There need to be ways that people can say, you know what, I'm really busy this week, but I want to be a part of this and I want to make a difference, and so I'll donate $10 or $100 or whatever fits for me to this cause because I'm not available to make that volunteering event. And on the other hand, there are going to be people who say, I want to experience something with other people and give back and, you know, get out from behind my desk. And so we need to make those opportunities available as well. So I really don't see this as an either or. I really see it as, again, multiple on-ramps. This is also the important factor on this shift that we were just looking at. I think Steve just walked us through on going from campaign season to year-round. The examples I just gave of different holidays is one way we can connect with what's on people's minds in the moment, but there's no shortage of experiences, news items, interactions that move someone to want to give back. And we as a corporate entity are not in the position to put a time frame on that. So having things available 365 days a year for our people to do, is really critical for giving through the workplace to be a significant on-ramp and opportunity that our people will take advantage of. So I'm not reading these slides because I know you can all read, and hopefully those comments bring these thoughts to life more than that. But this is, how I'm relating to this snapshot, and I hope you all will find the information in it as valuable as I have. I think this is, not unlike, in fact, very similar to Snapshot 2013. This isn't a, read it and put it on the shelf. I think this is a resource that many of us will revisit, until America's Charities and the team come out with a new body of research to update it in the future. Lindsay, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was amazing perspective. And I know we're getting lots of really great questions, so I just want to quickly turn it over to Dave to see what we can answer.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And as a former traffic reporter, I have to say, Heather, that having multiple on-ramps can cause crashes. So I'm glad that we have experts like you PwC to sort that out for us. So there's a question that came in from Boeing that was kind of interesting, I thought, and it had to do with virtual volunteering versus actually, going on site and doing work, in the flesh. And I wanted to find out, or they wanted to find out, whether there's any research that was unearthed during Snapshot 2020 on that, or 2015 on that. I'm getting ahead of ourselves. Or if there's a body of research on that elsewhere.
Dave, I'll respond to that. I think it's a great question. We did not ask specifically about virtual volunteering in Snapshot 2015, and I'm not aware of any research out there about that. I will tell you through my consulting practice and anecdotally, it is a key thing right now. It's hot, and corporations, as they're looking to engage employees, are looking for opportunities to do it at the work site rather than send them off-site. It's a challenge for the nonprofits to find activities that can be taken to the workplace, but there are a number of great things. Mini volunteer projects, they're called, or virtual volunteer projects. It is growing, and I think we're going to see more of that in the coming years.
Got it. Thanks, Steve. Another question for Steve or for Lindsay or for Heather from Tata. Is there any resource that we can find that can basically provide support to create corporate volunteer guidelines? So they're looking for background on guidelines, and also they're looking for metrics or ways that they can calculate the ROI of community engagement. Yeah. Do you want to send them to a certain resource, guys?
This is Lindsay. Absolutely. So it's really kind of interesting timing. We're actually putting the finishing touches on a white paper that actually talks about the corporate volunteer guidelines and how you really, the questions you want to ask yourself when you think through how to measure effectiveness. So charities.org will be your place for that. There's a lot of great resources out there about volunteerism in general. Our technology partner, Causecast, has a blog that their CEO writes that talks about what volunteering really means and how you think through it quite a bit. There's a group called Verified Volunteers out there that puts a lot of content out about what really makes up a successful program. So I selfishly am going to point you to my website, but there are great resources out there, and we'll be putting out our own white paper very soon because it is, as Snapshot 2015 shows, it's becoming a really popular topic.
Kind of a related question from David Rothschild, who's with the Fossil Foundation. He said that too often measurements of corporate engagement success focus more on what the corporation gets out of it rather than how you're creating positive impact in the world. And do any of you guys know how many, or if companies at all, are measuring their success by how they're helping their partner NGOs create or accelerate their impact versus what's coming back for the company.
Heather, do you want to answer that from a corporate perspective, or I could certainly jump in as well?
I was afraid you were going to say that, Steve, because I'd like to hear the question again. Do you want to jump in, and I'll see if I have anything to add?
Yeah, I think the question was really for organizations that have been reporting, corporations have been talking about how their philanthropy is affecting the company, and they're looking for changing the metrics so it's from inside out. How are we helping the world or the community or the causes that we're supporting? And they're just looking for some best practices on how partner NGOs can give them data that can accelerate their impact. And there's probably a lot of examples of this. We could take it offline if need be. So,
I definitely am seeing the same trend and the same pressure, and I touched on how I think even at an individual level, people are asking, right, how do I contribute to, say, the Sustainable Development Goals, something even that tangible and concrete, and we are starting to see some corporate entities map their corporate responsibility goals to the Sustainable Development Goals, and I think we'll see more and more of that, and I think that Impact 2030 is looking at how to put some consistency around the measurement. I know it's a tough nut to crack, and I know, too, that the nonprofit sector, especially smaller organizations, haven't, anyway, in the past, had the funding to really invest in that space, and you're absolutely right that the reporting to date has been more around the actual numbers of people involved.
Volunteer hours or dollars or...
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and it isn't getting to that heart of that question. Right.
Okay. Well, it's certainly a topic to look into as you do additional research and find best practices. But I'm glad you tied it to the Sustainable Development Goals. That's a smart way to look at it. Christine McElhaney, who works for Avalon Bay Communities, thanks for listening in, number one, and also for submitting a question. What have you found to be the most successful ways to communicate opportunities to employees, i.e. website, database, newsletter, et cetera? Anyone have any good examples of outstanding employee communications techniques that are being used to get really good engagement?
This is Heather. Can I take that? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Go ahead, Heather.
Sorry, Steve. No, please jump in on this, too. One thing that really struck me about the Snapshot is that 25% statistic around, I don't know if we can go back to that slide, but
I'll take a look for the slide. It's the one having to do with measuring media success? Yeah. Yes,
thank you. Because I think this is a big challenge in terms of reaching certainly employees. I almost always put the word busy in front of people or employees when I'm talking about our stakeholders, because this is a commonality we all have today, right? Everyone has so many demands on their time and is getting information from so many resources and being pulled in so many different directions. And so I would say the best practices I lean toward, which I've really gotten from a lot of our communications folks advising on this, is shorter communications that focus on just one or two points and not trying to, we used to try to, we might get people once, we'll try to tell them everything right now in this one communication. But the truth is they're not reading past the second sentence now. And so it's more about us being in multiple communication channels, including social media. So I don't view the social media piece so much as, like as the rest of the world hearing about what I'm doing at PwC. I'm viewing it more as, I know that my people are on all different social media channels, and they're more likely to hear about, say, this webcast by us tweeting about it than me trying to get out some internal communication. And it just doesn't work that way anymore, right? So I wouldn't go so far as to say we've cracked the nut. I think awareness building is it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, but I do think smaller snippets of interesting information that they'll share with their friends and hitting on multiple communication channels is what I see working best
And that's what we see at 3BL as well with corporate issuers of content. It's not just a single press release of 1,000 words that details what they've been doing for the last 6 months, but it's an infographic here or a photograph of volunteering there or a brief video, and it's just the employees love A, the recognition, and B, being able to take this asset and share it on their own private networks where it has a lot more authenticity. So thanks for
Dave, if I could add
that. Yes, Steve? Go ahead.
If I could add to that, we all talk about engagement, and if a person participates in an event, is that engagement? The real engagement comes when they tell others about the event they participated in. So I would just encourage you to use, number one, a variety of channels, but number two, let employees help tell the story. That's how you're going to engage them, is when they're talking about it.
Great. I'm going to get to one or two more questions. It's at 45 minutes, so if anyone has to drop off, I'll certainly understand it, but we have gotten, a very large number of questions, and if we don't get to your question today, we will share that with the panelists, and presenters may very well email you directly with an answer. One of the questions was submitted by Quicken Loans, and they asked, how are corporations handling individual employee volunteerism that happens outside of a nonprofit organization? Is it being recognized and tracked? And this is an issue that I remember came up during quite a bit during the Charities at Work conference in March in New York. So I'm sure that America Charities hears this a lot.
Yeah, it's Lindsay, and I'm glad you mentioned Charities at Work conference because we're doing that again next year in New York City on March 28th. So I do want to say that's a great resource for getting a lot of these kinds of answers. It's becoming more and more, as we mentioned how the workplace, the inside and outside, the walls of the workplace are tumbling down. So people who have these personal causes and are volunteering in their own time, it is, I think, up to the corporate and the employer to want to actually acknowledge that and actually take it into account to their own programs. I think the more forward-looking companies do if they have the ability to some kind of tracking system and measuring ROI. Because I think, particularly with the next generation, there isn't a line that I, care about this cause just at this place and not over here. I think this is maybe the direction it's going. But I do think that it's still new, and being able to, the corporate, focus has its own goals, and they're trying to reach and change the world for the better for a specific set of requirements, and they're trying to do something very specifically. So if it falls outside of that, it may not count. But there's a lot to dig in there, and that was a really good question.
Yeah, I think there's a similar question that American Airlines submitted as well, which is just, what are trends in workplace giving campaigns for large companies, and how are they still personalizing choices for employees, but also supporting the traditional organizations, right there in their communities. And that's that fine balance that you're talking about, attaching these to the business goals at a fundamental material level while still making the communities feel like they're cared about because they're the ones that are 50 feet outside of the manufacturing plant versus across the world. So I think it's probably too meaty to get into on the webcast, but if anyone has any final thoughts on that, we can wrap with that and then send individual answers.
Sure,
Dave,
I'd love to.
Heather.
Yeah, Heather first and then Steve.
Sorry. Thank you, Steve. We're also eager about these questions. This is exactly as you said, Dave. They're meaty. So I think that this is exactly one more of several reasons for needing multiple on-ramps, because it is this balance that we've touched on a couple of times now where you need organizational goals that resonate from top down and bottom up and are material to that business and cover the shared value and all that. You also need to recognize that, yes, people have very individual interests. I say, if we have 40,000 people at PwC, we have 40,000 different ways to give back. And so there is a balance. I think sometimes the 80-20 rule applies, but that's why you need a suite of activities. So like our Dollars for Doers program is going to recognize individual interests, whereas our Commitment to Youth Education is one signature program that we all can rally behind. So just two examples, but but that suite of on-ramps need to have some of each.
And Steve, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I would just say we found in Snapshot 2015 that 85% of companies say they now do year-round giving. So we have moved beyond just a annual fall campaign to more year-round approach. Now it's too meaty to get into what does year-round giving entail, but I would simply say, and how do you balance it? Employees are very open. Research has shown employees are very open to suggestions about what they should support, as long as there's an opportunity to give to their favorite causes as well. So it's this balance between recommendations, supporting company causes. They want to be part of the team. They want to be part of the company, wear that T-shirt representing with the company logo, but they also want to be able to give and promote their own causes as well. So technology has to be able to allow both.
Great. Lindsay, I wanted to go back to you just so that you can describe to everyone, and there has been an amazing retention rate on this webinar. I will say that, well over 100 people are still on, even though we went beyond the time limit. But let everyone know what they're going to get from you and what resources are available.
I would love to. And again, thank you to everyone for taking time out of your day to be with us, to Steve and Heather for giving us such great content, and everyone at 3BL for hosting us. In a few days, you will see an email in your inbox with the report, with a link to the report, with a link to this archived webinar. I know 3BL is going to be sharing that. So if you missed anything, if you want to pass it on, that is going to be your prerogative. And then with some more information that you can follow up on. So if you're interested in that white paper, we'd love to know. We're going to probably be doing a blog post to answer the questions that we didn't get to today, so we will try to include a link to that as well. So we're going to try to make sure you got everything that you wanted out of this, and if you didn't, or at any time, if you're interested in talking to anyone at America Charities, I would love to hear from you. So thanks for that, Dave.
Terrific. You're welcome. So in closing, I just want to remind everyone that January 14th, we have a similar webinar with different speakers and different topics, but the idea is to bring best practices, and it will be trends in sustainability reporting. Just one little statistic that I heard recently is in the early 90s, there were fewer than 50 companies doing sustainability reports. Now it's more than 7,500 companies through the end of last year. So very big topic. GRI, which is the Global Reporting Initiative out of Amsterdam, will be on the call, along with Weber Shandwick, which has some wonderful social impact work that they'll talk about, and CEMEX out of Mexico City to give some case studies. And you can register for that, and we'll email everyone on this webinar today with the registration link. On behalf of the team here at 3BL Media, I'd like to wish everyone happy holidays and best wishes for a healthy and prosperous and peaceful 2016. Thanks. Take care, and thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks so much.
No problem. And I'm on mute.